There's a strong case to be made that Harrison Ford is one of the greatest leading men in American film history. Most actors would be lucky to have one iconic role. Harrison Ford has had no less than 4. Han Solo in the Star Wars movies, Indiana Jones in the Indiana Jones movies, Rick Deckard in Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, and Jack Ryan in Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger. It's bullshit of the highest order that he's never won an Academy Award and only has 1 nomination. He moved to Los Angeles in 1964 not to find work as an actor, but doing radio voiceovers. Amusingly, he didn't get that role but did end up signing a contract with Columbia Pictures for $150 a week doing small, uncredited extra roles. It was a long slog though. For years and years, Ford felt as though he was going nowhere. What started as bit parts remained bit parts. He had a shot to move up when Jacques Demy wanted to cast him as the lead in Model Shop, but an executive at Columbia Pictures nixed that idea, saying that he thought Ford had no future in movies. Demy cast Gary Lockwood instead, and Ford started to supplement his income by becoming a professional carpenter. Ford did have his admirers though. One big one was Fred Roos, who, like Ford, was also coming up, but as a casting director and a producer. Roos got Ford an audition in his first major role, and that role would help change his life. No, not as Han Solo in Star Wars, but as Bob Falfa in George Lucas's 1973 hit, American Graffiti. The movie is one of the most successful independent films of all time. Made on a budget of just $770,000, it cleared $140 million at the box office and was the 3rd highest grossing movie of 1973. More importantly, it helped acquaint him and start a friendship with George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola hired Ford to expand his office after The Godfather was a hit and gave him roles in movies like The Conversation and Apocalypse Now. It was thanks to American Graffiti that Ford got the role of the century, Han Solo in Star Wars. Lucas initially hired him to help do line readings for other actors that were auditioning for roles in the movie, but liked him so much he decided to give him the starring role. Thus were launched the careers of Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill, all of whom could probably retire and never have to work another day after the massive continued success of Star Wars. But Ford kept working. He was raised in a blue-collar household and is most certainly a working man's actor. You never get the sense that he's putting on an affect. He's sincere in all of his roles, and Star Wars made sure that he kept getting them. In fact, between 1977 and 2023, he's averaged more than 1 movie per year. For 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg decided to cast Ford as Indiana Jones. This solidified Ford's status as an A-list actor and as one of Hollywood's leading men. It was the highest grossing movie of 1981 and proved to be another successful Ford-led franchise. But he wasn't just gunning for franchise plays. Rather, I'm not sure if Ford has ever really cared whether or not his movies got successful enough to have sequels. He doesn't strike me as someone that's in it for the money. After all, he asked George Lucas to kill off Han Solo in Return of the Jedi because he thought it would be right for the film, though it would have shut him out of future Star Wars movies. He wouldn't get his wish until The Force Awakens, but he cared enough about the story to pitch the idea. One of my favorite Ford performances is in Ridley Scott's 1982 masterpiece, Blade Runner, though one could argue that Rutger Hauer was the real star. Blade Runner had a famously difficult production that deserves its own video, but suffice it to say that no one, not Ford, not Scott, not screenwriter Hampton Fancher, thought that they would reunite for Denis Villeneuve's 2017 masterpiece, Blade Runner 2049. After all, some people on the crew called the original movie Blood Runner, though I'm sure the cast of 2049 were happy to have Villeneuve as their director as opposed to the perfectionist taskmaster Ridley Scott. Ford and Scott clashed over aspects of Ford's character, Rick Deckard, though perhaps it made for a better movie in the end. Despite not being a success on release, Blade Runner is one of the most influential movies of the 20th century. His immediate releases right after Blade Runner brought him back on top of the box office. Return of the Jedi and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and many of his subsequent films were successful. 1985's Witness, 1988's Working Girl, 1990's Presumed Innocent, and 1991's Regarding Harry. He starred in a couple of movies, 1992's Patriot Games and 1994's Clear and Present Danger, where he played Jack Ryan, a character from a series of Tom Clancy novels collectively known as the Ryanverse. The 1990s were a hell of a decade for Ford. All of his movies surpassed their budget, and most of them certainly turned a profit, even though he had no Indiana Jones or Star Wars movies that decade. 2 of them are some of his greatest movies, 1993's The Fugitive and 1997's Air Force One. It's an enviable career. Between 1977 and 1997, 6 of the movies he appeared in were nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards: Star Wars, Apocalypse Now, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Witness, Working Girl, and The Fugitive. And 12 were in the top 10 highest grossing movies of their respective years, with several of them topping out at number 1. Of course, most movie stars eventually hit something of a slump. By the late 90s and 2000s, the returns began to come down, though he's consistently kept acting. Even then, he only had a handful of out-and-out failures, with most movies, at the very least, turning a modest profit at the box office. 2008's Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was his biggest movie since 1997's Air Force One, and it had decent enough reviews, though few would call it their favorite Indiana Jones film. He kept on acting, treating it, like most people should, as work. He started taking on more supporting roles, like Branch Rickey in 2013's 42, and co-starred with Blake Lively in The Age of Adeline in 2015. Everyone was happy to see him again in The Force Awakens, which was a massive success, clearing $2 billion at the box office, and where he finally got his wish from 30 years ago, Han Solo dying. He reprised his role as Rick Deckard in Blade Runner 2049, which, even though it probably didn't break even, is still one of the best films of the 21st century so far. In 2023, he reprised his role as Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The movie flopped at the box office, but got alright reviews, with critics highlighting Ford in particular. Ford shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. He's leading 2 successful TV shows, 1923 and Shrinking, and he's already been cast as Thunderbolt Ross in Captain America: Brave New World and Thunderbolts. Harrison Ford is the last of a dying breed, the bona fide movie star. Here's hoping that he keeps going on for a long, long time.